Hello and welcome back to the Wisdom of Odin. I have quite the adventure to share with you today here in Germany. So I'm actually in the northernmost part of Germany, very close to Denmark, and I am at the old settlement of Haithabu, which is one of the largest Viking settlements and definitely one of the largest further south from the Scandinavian region. So this entire area was actually very active during the Danish times of Viking raids. So there's a lot of evidence left behind from the settlement here before it was taken down and destroyed. And most of those artifacts are kept here in the Haithabu Viking Museum or Vikinger Museum. And there is actually also a village that is a recreation village further down the way that we'll be visiting as well. So really this video is just to share with all of this with you as my audience, because the majority of you are American, are English speakers, and this entire place, none of it is in English. It's either in Danish or German. So I'm going to be taking my time, traducing everything to English and learning as much as I can, because I really don't know that much about this place. And that's really cool because, as someone from the West, as someone from America, we don't learn about the stuff like this, just because it's not common knowledge, where here you really kind of have to know about it to even know it's here. So to be able to record this information for you and share it with you here on this channel is one of the things I absolutely love doing. So with that, I'm going to head inside and learn as much as I can about the Viking settlement at Haithabu or Haithabu and share it all with you. And then we're going to head to the village and talk about that as well. So lots of great stuff today in this video about Vikings in Germany. So naturally, these places love to take my tripod away. So while I'm in the museum still, I need to talk to you through handheld because I'm actually like midway through, because you can only get to this little area here if you're in the museum itself. And sorry for the glasses as well, but doing what I can. And also the footage here, I did my best, but obviously it's a museum, so a museum is going to be its own way and its own lighting. But really fascinating. And just a quick recap of what I've learned. So for the most part, everything I covered in the beginning was fairly accurate. So Haithabu was one of the largest settlements. In fact, for over 100 years, it was one of the largest trading hubs of Northern Europe, which is really fascinating. So this actually is what led to its downfall, obviously, because this makes it a big, juicy target for people. So about 200 years into its history, a massive wall was built. So actually the original settlement is actually right behind us here. So they have the recreation village right over here, but it's nowhere near the size of what Haithabu was. So there was actually a massive wall that went all the way around the settlement to protect it, but it was eventually sacked by Harald Hardrada in around 1050. And then after he sacked it, the Slavs moved in and basically destroyed whatever was left. And then the nearby town of Schleswig, which is where I'm staying, became the new trade hub. So over the course of the history, it became quite wealthy and was very well known for the craftsmanship and the minting. So it minted a lot of money and was kind of the trade hub of the Danish kings, which visited here quite frequently. And which also means there's a lot of burial mounds here. I mean, it looked like there was well over 30 or 40 large burial mounds, which is where a lot of the items come from that are still in this museum. And I'll start putting them on the screen here if I haven't already. So these items range from swords to little beads to coins to gold. And really, what I'm walking away with is just how intricate some of these things were. I mean, there was just so many little minute details within it. And there was a section talking about when the settlement was first founded, when it was primarily a pagan settlement, the adornments were mostly animals. And then as it became more Christianized and more Europeanized, it became more geometric and lines and just patterns rather than just animal designs, which was quite fascinating. The first section was mostly about the history, and then the second section was mostly about the craftsmanship. And it's in the third section, about half of that section, you actually get some of the good, juicy pagan details that I was looking for. Most fascinating. One of the most fascinating things here for me is they have a potential berserker mask. So they can't confirm it, obviously, but they found a mask of an animal that looks kind of like a bear, maybe a pig, maybe a cow, but they don't know its usage, and they don't know if it was for a play or if it was for a child. But the common theory, I suppose, looks like it was once a ceremonial mask, possibly for berserkers. So really like that. That was cool seeing, because that's true. That's really awesome. They did have a few more spiritual objects in here, a few hammers, the Thors, a few Mjolnirs, a couple of very strange things like this little throne to Odin, I think is what they were selling it was, like a Hladskiof, but it also could be a high seat for Sather practice as well, as what I was thinking when I saw it. And then they also had a minting device, like an actual form mold for Mjolnirs, a couple of those actually. So that means Mjolnirs were so popular, they had formed molds for them, and they've discovered them quite frequently, which was really cool. Other than that, there was a lot of emphasis on the conversion. So there was this dickhole named like something alabaster, something something saint, that made it his mission to convert Haithabu, and was fairly unsuccessful, but still started it. And then Harold Bluetooth is the one that formalized Christianity here. Now, it did have some interesting notes about the conversion window, which is something that I've been kind of reading for a long time, so it's interesting to actually be here where it happened and read about it in a museum. So one of the things that led to the downfall, outside of Christianity obviously pushing for the extermination of paganism, one of the things that was a big proponent of this is the rise of political power. So when you have something that has so much money behind it, when you have something that becomes big and organized, paganism is not the best way to control the populace. And so paganism was becoming more political. It was becoming a way for the kings to basically, gain more power. And then, of course, Christianity rolls along, and Christianity is really good at giving you a way to maintain your power. And so it seems like that was the main reason that Harold Bluetooth converted the country and the nation, was for power. And I mean, I think that's the story for a lot of the Scandinavian countries, is it was all about power consolidation. And so ultimately what ended paganism, or at least what killed it off for the time, was definitely the money, the power, and the network it was building. So a great irony there. But at the same time, it seemed like it held on for well over 300 years through the practice, even towards the very end. Most of the graves were a mixture of Christian and pagan as well. But even, it's really funny, there was a cross in there that was obviously during the conversion window, because it had a figure that looked like Odin being stabbed by a spear. But it was supposed to be like angels, but they clearly were ravens to me on the side. So you can tell that maybe at some point this was a design for Odin that was converted and shifted over to Christianity, which is what was suggested in the museum here, is that there was this transitional window where things were kind of back and forth, a mixture of both. So found that really fascinating. Of course, there's also right here a boat. I mean, boats are really cool. It's great to see boat graves. I think I'm a little like, they're not very impressive to look at, like the actual pieces of the boat. It's like, oh, it's just like an old piece of driftwood is what it looks like. But at the same time, that used to be a boat that was out here, that was out on this part of the sea. That over here was part of the trade hub. And that's one of the crazy things about the trade hub, a little bit about the history. So the trade hub at one point had over, I think it was like 30 different docks, 30 different piers where ships were. So this was a massive network for trade. So a very, very large Viking settlement here in Germany at one point. And again, sad that it's gone, but I mean, a lot of it remains. I mean, the burial mounds, the rune stones, a lot of the grave goods, and the foundations for a lot of the buildings still remained even after it was sacked, and just evidence of what happened here. So really interesting and fascinating, and I really hope you enjoyed the footage of the relics here, because I know a lot of you probably will never be able to come here, so I hope this video suffices as a tour of here. Obviously, I couldn't show it all, but I did my best to find the stuff that would be interesting to a pagan audience. I'm going to go through the rest here, and I will come back if there's more. But otherwise, it is a walk to the settlement over here that is much smaller than the original, and we'll see what it looks like and maybe see what kind of cool items we can find. Because I already found some Mjolnirs in the shop, but they were very expensive and, fairly generic looking. So we'll see what lies for us in the village as well. All right, we are en route to the Viking village. I just wanted to cover a couple things that I missed in the museum as I exited. So one really interesting grave that they found, the most wealthy grave in the entire grave mound system they've dug up, was from a woman, and that was really cool. And there was a lot of really valuable and intricate looking objects there as well. You should be seeing them right now if editing Jacob did his job. So I really like that. And it seemed like overall everyone in the town was very wealthy, because I do think there's this image in Viking lore that they weren't this valuable people, that these dirty, filthy people. But of course, something a lot of scholars and historians are really trying to fight against is the fact that they were actually fairly well off in the end, and they were very clean. So there was plenty of combs and cleaning instruments as well, and just really wonderful craftsmen. Another thing I forgot to mention is in the religious side of things, there were votive offerings. And so, of course, it mentioned animal sacrifice and things like that, because, of course, it did. But it actually had things people had thrown into bogs and inaccessible places as offerings. So there was like a little sword, a little person, and then they would give those to the gods as well. And then they also mentioned that they would wear them as pendants, and so people believed in having objects around yourself that would protect you and provide some form of magical properties. So anytime I see something from the past where it was like people like to have objects, people like to have amulets and things like that to think of their magic and think of their spirituality, I always think, well, that's really cool, because obviously that's something we really believe in now as well. And then the votive offer thing is great to see, because obviously we're not going around giving animals, killing animals and sacrificing them anymore, just because our society has moved past that. And so to see that they were already giving votive offerings in the past was really cool as well. But yeah, so on the path we are, it is so busy here, which is good. I mean, seriously, this is the busiest I've seen this entire city. They're literally a group, like a school group up there. We've passed by like 6 or 7 different school groups, obviously not from here, like they traveled here. So really nice to see that this place is still so full of people experiencing this and learning from it. That gives me hope for the future generations, that they come to places like this and learn from the past, specifically the Viking past. All right, onto the village. When you find just random goats under a tree on your way to the Viking village. And on donor's tag. Nice. So I don't know how well you're going to be able to hear this, because we're actually on top of a hill here, and it's very windy, but it's not a hill. It's actually the original rampart of the city. So starting right here, you can see the slope down, and especially over here, you can see it as well. We had to climb these stairs. And then over there is the Recreation Village. Remember, Recreation is smaller. In fact, from that village all the way to here was the village, and then all the way to the other side on the other side of the wall. So just imagine standing right here, looking over, and all you would see is a massive Viking settlement, like 30 boats along the ocean, along the sea wall there. Absolutely incredible to stand here. I mean, right there, Viking ships would have been coming in, rolling into the harbor. 300 years. Incredible. So the village itself is very small. I don't want to downplay it at all. It's still really cool. I'm very excited that people come to places like this still. I mean, look, it's very crowded. It's been very hard to film here, but it is very small, and I wish there was a little bit more there. Like, we recently visited a place in Eindhoven, which was a recreation village that actually had a Viking section that was honestly a little bit more impressive. However, it didn't have the water, which is the coolest part about this, especially, the dock I'm on right now. Just the imagination. Imagining, you have this dock, a little boat there. Imagine 20 more docks that way, and then 20 more docks the other way. Then ships out in port. Again, here is the wall. Wall runs back there all the way around the village, and then eventually it would have come out into the ocean here, and then had a little tower guard. So it was a very impressive thing. Right here where I'm standing 1,000 years ago was a very, very large, impressive, wealthy Viking settlement, and that is pretty fucking cool. Was the village now pretty small. I even had trouble finding it there on the video. Yes, it is pretty small, but still, you know, it gets that imagination going, thinking about what it would have been like when all of this was a Viking settlement. And I think that does the job just enough. Overall, museum was great. Village was okay. I mean, history is still so important, and that is the biggest thing. But the museum was definitely worth going to. The imagination, all of it is just an important part of our history, an important part of pagan culture, because this is one of the last stands, one of the last places that existed where pagans probably worshipped, had a temple, and did things. And so there is an importance here, and so glad I was able to share it with you in this video talking about Vikings in Germany. So thank you so much for joining me. Hope you've enjoyed it. And if you really enjoyed it, please make sure you like and subscribe and all that good stuff, because I will be going up to Denmark to visit Reba here very soon and having a video very similar. So thank you all so very much, and until the hall. Let's go. Hello, it is me once again at the very end of this video. If you really love this video and love the content and want to support what I'm doing, please think about donating to Patreon. It is the only way I'm able to do this full time, and it's the only way I'm able to come to places like this, share it with you. I try to do my best to make sure these videos are something new and unique, and something I think the pagan Norse mythology enthusiast community needs. All these people right here running through the credits, you guys are awesome. Thank you. And to the 40% of you that made it to the end of the video, you guys are just as awesome as well. And the dream of the hall is real. Every time I come to places like this, I'm like, I get any ideas. I'm so excited. So once again, thank you, and until the hall.